Air France Flight 178, 1953. 42 lives vanished in a single heartbeat, swallowed by the side of a mountain they never saw coming. It was September 1st, 1953. Air France Flight 178, a Lockheed Constellation, was en route from Paris to Nice, carrying a cabin full of business travelers and holidaymakers. As it neared Mont Le Cimet in southeastern France, the weather turned. Clouds thickened, visibility dropped, but the plane continued its descent. Then, impact. In a devastating miscalculation of altitude and location, the aircraft slammed into the jagged terrain of the mountain. No survivors. All 42 passengers and crew were lost in an instant. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a lesson, one that echoed through the corridors of post-war aviation. It exposed critical flaws in terrain awareness and radio navigation, particularly in mountainous areas where visual cues vanish in bad weather. In the years that followed, aviation authorities began to prioritize terrain proximity alerts and standardized descent protocols, an early push toward the safety technologies we rely on today. But this was only the beginning, because less than a decade later, Air France would face another catastrophe that would shake the skies of Europe yet again. Air France Flight 007, 1962. They were patrons of the arts, philanthropists, collectors, dreamers, boarding one of the most modern jets of the time. But within moments, they'd become part of one of the darkest chapters in aviation history. June 3, 1962. Orly Airport, Paris. A sleek Boeing 707 lined up for takeoff. Air France Flight 007. On board, 132 passengers and crew, most of them Americans returning from a cultural tour of Europe. The engines roared, the aircraft accelerated, but something was wrong. The plane never left the ground. Instead, it thundered past the end of the runway, crashed into a small embankment, and exploded into a fireball. Flames engulfed the wreckage within seconds. Of the 132 on board, only 2 survived, both flight attendants. The remaining 130 perished, making it the deadliest single aircraft disaster in history at that time. The cause? Improper flap settings and pilot error, a fatal oversight in a routine procedure. In the aftermath, pre-flight checklists across the globe were rewritten. Airlines introduced stricter cockpit protocols and emergency response training. What had once been habit was now treated as sacred ritual, and this wouldn't be the last time Air France faced the consequences of miscommunication in the cockpit. Air France Flight 4590, 2000. It was supposed to be the future, sleek, fast, untouchable. On July 25, 2000, the world watched as Air France Flight 4590, a Concorde supersonic jet, prepared for takeoff at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Wealthy passengers climbed aboard what was once aviation's crown jewel, the only commercial aircraft that could outrun sound, but just seconds after the wheels rolled, disaster struck. A small strip of titanium, left behind by a departing DC-10, lay unnoticed on the runway. One tire hit it at over 300 kilometers per hour. The explosion sent rubber shrapnel into the underside of the wing. It punctured a fuel tank. Fire ignited. The aircraft veered left, engines failing, engulfed in flames. Just 2 minutes later, the Concorde plummeted into a hotel in the nearby town of Gonesse. All 109 passengers and crew were killed, along with 4 people on the ground. It was the end of an era. The Concorde, once a symbol of elite speed and engineering brilliance, had a vulnerability hidden beneath its polished skin. In the aftermath, safety protocols were rewritten. Fuel tank linings were reinforced, tire designs across the aviation world were upgraded, but the damage was done. The magic of Mach 2 flight had turned fatal, and the Concorde was grounded for good. But Air France's most iconic aircraft wouldn't be its last to fall. A decade later, it would be another Airbus, not a Concorde, that vanished without a trace over the Atlantic. Air France Flight 447, 2009. It was supposed to be just another overnight flight across the Atlantic. But somewhere between Rio and Paris, Air France Flight 447 disappeared, without a distress call, without a trace. On May 31, 2009, an Airbus A330 carrying 228 passengers and crew lifted off from Brazil. The skies ahead seemed uneventful. Then came turbulence. In the middle of the night, flying through a band of thunderstorms, ice crystals began forming on the plane's pitot tubes, small but critical sensors that measure airspeed. Suddenly, the autopilot disengaged. Confused and facing conflicting instrument data, the pilots made a fatal mistake. They pulled the nose up, stalling the aircraft at 38,000 feet. For the next 3 minutes and 30 seconds, the plane descended in a freefall, unnoticed by the outside world. When it finally crashed into the Atlantic, all 228 people on board were killed. But the investigation wouldn't end with the wreckage. It took 2 years to locate the black boxes on the ocean floor, and what they revealed was chilling. A cascade of confusion, system limitations, and human error. The aftermath was massive. Pilot training across the globe was restructured to emphasize manual flying skills and high-altitude stall recovery. Airbus revised procedures. Regulators demanded better sensor redundancy and data clarity. AF447 became more than a crash. It was a reckoning. Proof that even with cutting-edge technology, miscommunication and reliance on automation could be fatal. And with that, Air France closed one of the darkest chapters in its history. Air France Flight 296Q, 1988. It was supposed to be a showcase, a celebration of innovation. June 26, 1988. Thousands gathered at the Mulhouse Habsheim Air Show to witness the future of flight. The Airbus A320, Air France's newest pride with its sleek frame and revolutionary fly-by-wire system. The plan? A dramatic low-speed, low-altitude flyby to show just how advanced and stable this aircraft really was. But just seconds into the descent, awe turned into horror. The plane dipped lower than intended, trees loomed ahead, and before the crew could respond, the aircraft clipped the forest canopy at the end of the runway and slammed into the woods. Smoke billowed through the trees. The cockpit remained intact, but 3 passengers were killed. It was the first crash involving the A320, and instantly, fingers pointed. Was it human error? Or had pilots surrendered too much control to computers? Investigators concluded the altitude was dangerously low and the flight path poorly planned. But the deeper debate struck a nerve across the aviation industry. In an era of automation, how much trust is too much? The crash didn't just stain a PR stunt, it ignited a conversation that continues to this day. Because in modern cockpits, the line between man and machine is thin, and sometimes it's a matter of life and death. Conclusion. Each of these tragedies carved lessons into the foundation of aviation safety. From the mountains of France to the depths of the Atlantic, Air France's darkest hours reshaped global flight protocols. But the legacy of these crashes isn't just about loss, it's about progress. Each accident exposed flaws, technological, procedural, or human, and forced the industry to evolve. So next time you board a flight, remember, the rules that keep you safe were written in the aftermath of tragedy. If this video gripped you, hit that like button, subscribe for more in-depth breakdowns, and tell us in the comments which of these disasters shocked you the most.